Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we will understand about SQL constraints. SQL constraints are used to maintain data quality, data accuracy, and data integrity. Constraints are the rules that we apply to the columns of the table so that only valid data flows into the database. There are 6 types of constraints: primary key, foreign key, unique, not null, check, and default. We are going to understand them one by one with examples. SQL constraints are applied at the column level. You can see in our create table script, we apply the constraint in front of the columns. What are constraints? As we have discussed, the definition of constraint is that constraints are rules we apply on columns in a table. They help maintain accuracy, reliability, and integrity of data. And in simple words, constraint makes sure only valid data goes into our database. Let's start with the primary key constraint. A primary key constraint is used to identify each record. To identify unique record, we are using the primary key. The primary key constraint is having not null and unique characteristics. This primary key constraint is used to uniquely identify each record, and every table should have one primary key. It can be a single column or it can be a combination of multiple columns. You can see in the customers table, customer ID, we are taking it as a primary key. Why? Because customer ID cannot be null and customer ID cannot be duplicate. A customer ID can have unique customer IDs. No two customers should have same customer ID, and the customer ID column should not have empty records. Therefore, we apply primary key constraint on the customer ID column in the customer table. Why we have not applied this primary key constraint on the name column? Because name can be duplicate, but customer ID should not be duplicate and it should not have any null values. Now let's discuss about the foreign key constraint. It is used to maintain the relationship between the two tables. By using foreign key, we will link the two tables by using the primary and foreign key. A primary key present in one table acts as the foreign key in another table. Take an example of orders table here. In the orders table, order ID is the primary key and customer ID is the foreign key. This customer ID present in the orders table is referencing the customer ID present in the customers table. So the customer table and the orders tables are linked by using this customer ID key, which is foreign key in the orders table, and it is the primary key. It is the foreign key in the orders table and it is the primary key in the customers table. Let's discuss about the unique constraint. Unique constraint is applied on such a column where we want only unique records. We don't want any duplicate records. Take an example of employees table here. In the employees table, employee ID is the primary key and email is the unique key, because for each employee the email ID should be different. Therefore, by using the unique key constraint, we will make sure that no duplicate email IDs are entered in this particular column. Now let's discuss about the not null constraints. By using the not null constraint over a column, we'll make sure that the column should not have any null values. Take an example of student table. In the student table, student ID is the primary key and name column we are applying not null constraint because name cannot be empty. To make sure that no null values are populating in our name column, we will apply the constraint as not null, so that if you try to insert the null values in this particular name column, the violation will come and the data won't be inserted into the student table. Now let's discuss about the check constraints, which will make sure that only the data in a particular limit, under a particular limit, will be stored under a column. Take an example of products table here. In the products tables, we have two columns, product ID and price. Product ID being the primary key, and over the price column we are applying the check constraint. So the price cannot be less than 0 or price cannot be negative value. To make sure that only the price column should populate with values more than 0, we make sure that check constraint is applied. So this column will only allow the data to get inserted when the price is greater than 0. If the price is less than 0 or equal to 0, the data won't be inserted into this particular table. Now lastly, discuss about the default constraint. So we are providing a default value when no value is provided. In your insert script, if you are passing empty value to a particular column or you are passing no any value for a particular column, then default value will get populated into that particular column. So how to provide the default constraint? Take an example of accounts table here. In the accounts table, account ID is the primary key and we have applied this default constraint over the balance column. On the balance column, the data type is decimal and default value is 0. When no value we are passing to this column, by default 0 value will be passed into this particular column. Now let's discuss this with some examples. I have created sales database and now I am using the sales database. I will create two tables here. One is departments table and another one is employees table. In the departments table, department ID is the primary key because department ID cannot be null and it cannot be duplicate. And department name I have taken as a unique because department name cannot be duplicate. So I will create this table. Okay, the command completed successfully. So we have created the department table. Now let's come to the employees table. In the employees table, employee ID is the primary key because employee ID cannot be null or cannot be duplicate. Take second column, first name. First name cannot be null. Okay, name column cannot be null. So therefore we have applied not null constraint over this column. Last name, sometimes it can be null. Email ID, we have applied unique constraint because email IDs cannot be duplicate. Therefore, to make sure that only unique email IDs are entered in this column, we have used unique constraint over this column. Next is department ID. Now department ID in the employees table is acting as the foreign key and it is referencing the primary key of the department table. So department ID is present in here also and department ID is present in this table also. In this table it is acting as the foreign key, in this table it is acting as the primary key, which is useful to build the relationship between these two tables. We can join them and we can get the department name. Next column is salary. On the salary we have applied check constraint and we have mentioned that salary should be greater than 0, which will make sure that the salary column should populate with the values greater than 0 because salary cannot be less than 0 or equal to 0. Therefore we have applied the check constraint like this over the salary column. Next column is joining date. On the joining date column we have used default constraint and we are passing the default date. Get date is nothing but it will pass the today's date. If the joining date is not given in the insert script, then by default today's date will be inserted into the table. So according to the our table columns and according to the characteristic, we'll pick the right constraint for the columns to make sure that the data is accurate, consistent, and to maintain the integrity of the data. Now I will execute this create table script for the employees table. So now this table also got created. Now we'll insert the data into the first department table. I will insert 3 records. 1, 2, 3 is the department ID and HR, IT, Finance is the department name. So 3 rows are affected. 3 rows are inserted into the department table. Now I will insert the data into the employees table. So you can see here Also I have inserted 3 records. Now we'll see the data. Select star from department. See department ID, department name. 2 columns are there. Department ID is the primary key and department name is having the not null constraint. See the data also in the employees table. 3 records are inserted. Okay. Now we will pass some values which will violate the constraint so that the data should not get inserted into the table. Take an example of employees table. In the employees table, first name is having not null constraint and it is the second column, and we are passing some null values into that column. We are trying to pass, but let's see what will happen. See, cannot insert the value null into the column first name because column does not allow nulls. Now again, let's try to insert some duplicate email IDs into the employees table. So we have email as a column, and over this column we have applied unit constraints, so duplicate values will not be accepted. So we are trying to insert one duplicate email ID which is already present. So I will execute this. So again it is cannot insert duplicate key. See, in this way it will help us to maintain the data quality and data accuracy. Similarly, we are trying to pass some duplicate email IDs in this table. Email ID is our primary key constraint. See, and primary key cannot have duplicate and null values, but we are trying to pass some duplicate values. 101 already we have passed. Again we are trying to pass 101, so it is failing. Now violating some referential integrity. Department number ID 99 does not exist in the departments table, but we are trying to pass department ID. We have department ID 1213. We don't have department ID 99. So when we try to insert this department ID into the employees table, see, it is again violation of the foreign key because this department ID is not present in the department table. Now let's see about the check constraint. So check constraint we have applied over the salary column, and salary should be greater than 0, but here you can see salary is negative. So when we try to insert this, it won't get inserted because we have applied the check constraint, so that salary should be greater than 0 always. Now last, the default constraint. So joining date will be set to today's automatically. See, I have not mentioned here the joining date. You can't see any date value in this insert script, but when you execute this command, one row is affected because by default today's date is taken as the joining date. So when we see select star from employees, when we filter this data, you see the data, you can see that now there are 4 records and this is our last entry and today's date. By default it is taken. So in this way, constraint helps us to maintain the data quality, data accuracy, data integrity. If you like this video, please comment, like and share, and don't forget to subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching this video.